Okay, so it's the 18th of January, 2022, and I am doing my 10 minutes of this is what I did, this is what I'm going to do. What I did last night, what I was trying to do last night is two main characters in The Harvest. One is Cal, who is off outside of Hope, and the other one is Aya, who's inside. Now, Cal is a catalyst. He is facilitating the story, but and he's a key part of the story. But the story is Aya. And what I've been trying to do, I started off doing one thing and ended up having to do another thing. So what I started off doing was trying or continuing or finishing off the process of tracking Aya's story through the midpoint and then through the second half of Act 2. I know what happens at the end of an Act 3. It needs to be slightly edited based on Aya's elevated role now, but other than that, it's just Act 2 I need to get sorted. Now, the thing is, although there's a giant tentacle, which is called the Jix, which is the farmer, and then there's these man-sized claws, which are man-sized hawks, which are called claws. They're not the threat in the story. The threat in the story is the community as it deteriorates. The community is a threat. Now what we have is Cal is off, and he's doing his thing, and he has his own midpoint. And it's quite a dramatic midpoint. And he is a catalyst when he comes back to Hope for what then happens. But we have to do two things. Number one, we have to track Aya's character arc through that story. And then we also have to do is track the community of Hope through that character arc, because it's the community that has to be ready to react in certain ways. You know, the community over this short period of time, maybe 4 or 5 days, has to combust, and so the story has to start with all the pieces in place, ready for everything all the dominoes to fall over, and then as the story goes on, for all to start to take place. So that's what I was doing last night. I was creating the Aya story arc in the back end of what I would call 2B, the second half of Act 2, after the midpoint. But the community is frayed, and there's a shortage of food. It's overpopulated, and so I spent the night tracking the character arc and trying to create in my mind how the community would react to all the events that happen through the story. Yeah, we've got a lot happens in the first act. In fact, we've got a ton of stuff happens. I've been busy trying to work out what the community reaction would be, like the calm community reaction, and how it would then manifest some of the things that happened to Aya at the back end of the story. How that was born is what I've been trying to do is you're in a story, you get to the midpoint, and through the first half of the story, there's an obvious goal that you have that you need to accomplish. But then as you get to the midpoint, you draw back the curtain and see that there's a bigger and worse threat. And so I've got that with Cal. That's not a problem. That is accomplished for Cal. But what I wanted to do is the temptation is just to leave that and just have Aya bobbing along in the background through these. But if I can give her an equivalent character arc that has a key midpoint moment, then all the better. And I have some really key moments as we lead up to the midpoint, and I have a good idea of what's going to happen in the midpoint. But I'm building up to a dramatic event, but to give her this goal, it has been quite challenging, which is how I came, because it's the community that largely forged her, and the community reaction to her that largely ends up creating who she becomes. So that's what I did last night. I spent nearly 3 hours I mapped out all the key events for the story and tried to then map how the community gets more strung out through the story, and how that manifests in different reactions, and how, when it all goes pear-shaped, how it could be primed to do that. So when the reader reads it, it feels like a natural evolution of the characters and the community. Anyway, so I did read some more. I started reading The Final Empire, which is the book I'm reading on the Kindle at the moment. And he's not called Kaiser. The main character is called Kelsier, I'm pretty sure. And I was trying to work out, yesterday in my journal, I was trying to work out that there's something wrong with Kelsier. As a reader and as a writer, you think that what's wrong with Kelsier, and what doesn't work, what feels wrong about him. Now, it may be the author is setting something up. You know, he runs around like always smiling. He's been through some trauma. He's lost his wife, but he seems to run around always smiling, always happy. He's like Errol Flynn as a pirate. I've seen or Robin Hood, sort of just appears and winks and is constantly happy and flamboyant is the word. He doesn't seem to, we know that he's got these dark driving forces and he's been through some trauma, but that doesn't seem to play in his character. And I was trying to think what feels off about him at the moment. And like I say, maybe the author is setting something up, but there is a moment in the story where he goes off and they're about to start this rebellion. This is the beginning of the book, so I'm not giving anything away. And he just basically picks offhand the hardest place that he can raid or create, like this big noble house. Echo, stop. This big noble house that he just decides that he's going to raid or invade. And so he just offhandedly picks the hardest one. And the way that he gets there and the way that he uses his powers is very cool. And maybe a little bit over-explained as the whole scene plays out. But there's no drama to the whole thing. He just goes there pretty easy. He has one fight where he's in a little bit of trouble, but it's not really much trouble. And he escapes with what he needs to do. And we've been shown his powers, but there was no drama to the whole thing. He just succeeds at everything he does with very little risk of failure. And it just hasn't got any substance. So it's a very popular book, and I'm sure it's going to pan out. But that's one of the things that I was struggling with. And you want the character to have to do something they don't want to do and nearly fail. That adds a dramatic event. It's relatable, and we then like the fact that he has these powers that he can use. If he just picks the hardest thing to do and then just does it with ease, you're just a witness to something. You don't relate. You're just a witness to this, a spectator, rather than having a story narrative involve you. Anyway, so that was my thoughts on The Final Empire on my reading last night. I shall read some more. I thought I was going to get some time to listen to The Magic Toy Shop, I think it is, today, but I didn't. But I'm definitely going to be doing that probably tomorrow at some point in time. Really looking forward to getting back into what happens to Mel with Uncle Philip and his mute wife. Anyway, so tonight I'm just going to be trying to remapping the evolution of the community, and I'm probably going to have to give the community like a face or a character. Now I think about it, because I've got lots of characters already, and I don't particularly want to be adding any new ones. But I think Isa is the perfect person actually she's the alpha female in the community. She is notionally the queen. There isn't a title for the queen, but she's the partner of the leading boy, who is called the king. So I think I'll probably have to give her the voice of the community, and it makes sense because she is the matriarch of the community. So I hope that makes sense. I'll let you know how it goes. Talk to you tomorrow.